peeps! I just got back from taking a nice run outside, and while I was running, I was pondering this most recent viewer request. So one of you had asked me if I would recommend decks for working with the Magdalen, and I have a little list compiled, and I'm very excited to talk a little bit about that with you guys today. So the viewer had asked for tarot decks. I have 3 tarot decks that I would recommend. And then I have 5 oracle decks. So we're going to talk about these decks and the reason why I think that they can be helpful in connecting with the Magdalen. Now, I do want to say that I know that there are a few Magdalen focused decks out there on the market right now. I'm not recommending any of those in this video because I don't have those decks. There was a Salerno Magdalen oracle that I had a long time ago that I gifted because in the end, it didn't end up being resonant with how I experienced the Magdalen's energy. So I did pass that deck along, and that deck moved out of my life. And it's not one that I feel any desire to attempt to reconnect with or build a relationship with. And then I know that there's another Hay House Magdalen oracle that's out there, which I have been considering purchasing, but to date, it's the 27th of March in 2023 today, I have not purchased that deck. So I cannot speak to if that deck is a worthy representation of the Magdalen, in my opinion. So in order to talk about this list, we first have to talk about what I would say working with the Magdalen is like. So to me, working with the Magdalen came through for me at a time when I was really healing my spirituality in relation to my sexuality and also to being embodied as a female. So if you're someone who's experienced a lot of misogyny in your life, or been really told that being a woman or being female is something that makes you less than or fallen, the Magdalen may come in as a sacred force to help you heal that. And that was definitely why the Magdalen came into my life experience, was to help me to heal and find my strength in my my expression of my spirituality through my physicality. So when we look at the myth of the Magdalen in the Bible, she was a prostitute. Jesus did wash her feet, and then she walked with Christ as a disciple. Now, if you move into the Gnostic Gospels, many people consider her to have been a lover of Christ's, and some would even say that they birthed a physical child. But she did continue preaching his gospel after his death, either way, right? And this video is not a debate about if the Magdalen and Christ had a child or not, etc. That's not the purpose of connecting with the Magdalen through card work. For me, we connect with the Magdalen when we need that experience of unconditional love, grace, and empowerment and affirmation on our path. She's a very loving energy. She will work with you to accept yourself, to accept the parts of yourself that you might consider less than or fallen. And she's going to help you to experience love as a part of your spiritual path. And I don't just mean romantic love, but I mean the essence of love within yourself, within others, in community, and in how you show up for your life story. So oftentimes we'll connect with her after periods of loss, or if we've been unplugging from a detrimental religious experience like myself, and we're rediscovering and trying to find the divine, the beauty, the grace within ourselves and our practice. She'll often show up like for instance, for me, she really showed up while I was going through my divorce as well. She shows up through those times of transition, and she gives us a sense of grace, of love, and support. And if you work with her through the Gnostic Gospels, you can get really, really intimate with her gospel and her work of furthering Jesus' gospel as well, Christ's gospel as well. but she's one that you turn to through darker times and through times when perhaps you felt disempowered. And, you know, it's one of those things that I can speak to, but I think you have to feel it in order to know. But you'll feel her presence as this infinite grace and love. But she's also spunky and she's fun and sassy. At least that's how I experience her. And I do have a tattoo on my body representative of the Melissae, her priestesses, and this lineage of the sacred prostitute and what that means in regards to our sexuality and our spirituality and the union that happens through that expression. So she very much holds a place throughout these realms. So let's talk about how you can connect with her through card work. So you can connect with her through card work in that the card spreads that you're crafting and creating and working with can help you to receive direct messages from her. You can also do spreads gaining insight from her into a specific area or situation in your life that you want her guidance and support from. And you can especially work with the oracle decks I'm going to mention as daily channeled messages from the Magdalene herself as well. If you are looking to build a practice with the Magdalene, just before I get into the decks and why you might want to work with specific decks that I'm going to list here, if you're looking to build a practice with the Magdalene or to call the Magdalene in, or if she's shown up but you're not sure how to further the connection with her, I really want to encourage you to journey with her. So you'll start in your inner temple, you'll connect with the energy of the Magdalene, and you'll journey and let her take you wherever she is called to take you on that journey, so that you can build that relationship and that connection with her. Remember, like I always say on the channel, when we're working with deity, we're building a relationship, and the way that we build a relationship is through showing up and communicating. And so what you bring intentionally to the Magdalene, she will return to you 100-fold. So if you're looking to connect with her, those are ways that you can do that. And those are ways that you can use your tarot practice to help you build communication with her as well. So you can look at the tarot as the tool through which she communicates with you directly. All right, I'm going to talk about the tarot decks first. I have 3 decks on this list. I believe that they're all still in print. The first deck is the Mary L Tarot, which, okay, I had it upside down. The first deck is the Mary L Tarot by Marie White. This is a deck with a lot of esoteric foundation in biblical tradition as well as occult tradition. And it lends well with the Magdalene's myth of being the rose and the thorn, right? Working with Christ's lineage as well there. So you'll see a lot of representation symbolically in this deck with that energy. And if you're looking to bring in that type of healing, especially around Christianity, the Magdalene being a part of Christian myth, there can be a real power to working with the imagery in this deck. It's a very straight shooter. It's very real, honest, and upfront. And so I would say if you're really struggling with depression or you're in a darker space and you're connecting with the Magdalene, I wouldn't necessarily say go to the Mary L. But if you're in a really clear space, or if you're very grounded and you're really working on building communication with the Magdalene, this deck can be really helpful and really powerful to do that with. So once again, this is the Mary L Tarot. And I would say, so this deck is on my list as a recommendation because of the Christian occult background and symbolism contained within the deck. Also, I really see the Magdalene as being like color-wise to me. She's like reds and pinks and mauves. And this deck has a very strong color tonality to it as well. And so I think it lends itself well to the like color energy that I experienced the Magdalene with. So that's the Mary L Tarot by Marie White. The next deck on the list is the Tarot of Vampyres by Ian Daniels. Now, while this is a deck that's not in any way like made to work with the Magdalene or anything like that, as I said, none of these decks are. To me, this deck lends itself well to the myth of literally the rose and the thorns here that we see on the backing of the deck. Again, the color tonality is very in keeping with the Magdalene. And because this deck is so open to the sensuality of the vampire myth, I think it lends itself well to the Magdalene and how she often is helping us to repair our experience of sexuality and being embodied as human, as a part of our spiritual evolution and spiritual journey as well. So this is the Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. This is my favorite deck of all time across the board. There's plenty of videos on my channel and a plethora of videos elsewhere on YouTube where you can find information on working with the Tarot of Vampires, but it lends itself very well to the myth of the Magdalene, and as well the myth of the Magdalene and the Christ. And so you can really get a lot out of again, the sacred sexuality that is represented in a very healthy way in this deck. So that is Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. There's the lovers right there, just kind of backing up that whole theme. The other tarot deck that I would recommend is the Serpentfire Tarot. This deck is really beautiful, and again, it's a feeling thing for me when it comes to working with the Magdalene. I think this deck has a really beautiful celestial vibe that lends itself well to the Magdalene's journey and how she opened up to understanding that while she may have been considered fallen in the Christian tradition, she was actually held in reverence by Christ, right? And so her awakening, I think, is represented for me in the colors and the feeling of the imagery chosen for the Serpentfire Tarot. I also think when we're working with her magical tradition, which does involve sacred sexuality, this deck is really tapped into that energy. And so it lends itself well to connecting with that lineage and invoking it into your personal practice and life story. So if you're looking to heal around sacred sexuality, this is a great deck. Now, I'm going to take a moment while I have this card in my hand just to say that if you're going to work with the myth of the Magdalene, you are at some point going to go back into the roots of Isis and the lineage of Isis. And so this deck also has an Egyptian mythology tonality to it that I think lends well to following the thread of the Magdalene into the cult of Isis, the esoteric and occult work in relation to Isis, and to the stories of the sacred prostitutes that also served Isis in her temple as well. So that is the Serpentfire Tarot, and I think it's a really, really great option for connecting with the Magdalene. I think of the three, I would say that the Serpentfire Tarot is the most well-rounded and is really going to give you that feel for the Magdalene, but it's also a little bit softer. It's a little less in your face than the Mary L. It's a little less esoteric than Tarot of Vampires. So this could be a nice jumping off point or starting point for you if you want to connect with the Magdalene through tarot. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about oracle decks that I connect with the Magdalene with. I think I connect more with the Magdalene through oracle decks, to be very honest. And if I really want a very specific one card message from the Magdalene, I will actually work with the White Light Oracle by Alana Fairchild. This deck is really, really beautiful, and I think it contains the grace of the Magdalene in its imagery and in the channeled guidebook meanings by Alana. It's a really, really special, beautiful deck. And it's a very unconditionally loving deck as well. So if you've connected with the Magdalene because you're healing a relationship to your body in this life, this is a deck that's going to be very supportive and gentle and loving and inspiring. It's a really, really beautiful deck. So I would say of all the decks on this list, if you can only get one, I would say work with the White Light Oracle. And when you're working with the guidebook, consider the messages that you're reading in the guidebook, messages from the Magdalene for you specifically. But this deck is really special, and I'm actually working with it for my daily draws right now. So the next deck on my list is the Sacred Earth Oracle, because so much of the Magdalene's energy and how I work with her for myself and for clients has to do with healing our relationship to our body and to the physical realm, instead of seeing it as something that we have to be cut off from in order to be spiritual. With the Magdalen, you're looking at healing that to understand that by being embodied and by caring for the body as a sacred vessel, we're actually connecting more deeply to our spiritual experience. And the artwork in this deck lends itself really well for that embodied experience. The colors, again, I really feel like line up with that energy. Now, while there is a shamanic vibe to this deck, as you can see here, I think that the general feel from the messages resonates for me with the Magdalen. And so I would say this is a deck that you can find a doorway through. It can serve as a portal to connecting with the energy of the Magdalen for you on your path. And whether you're using it for a one-card draw to get a message from the Magdalen, or if you want to use this deck for larger spreads, this deck can definitely go there with you. So this is the Sacred Earth Oracle with artwork by Helena Nelson Reed. And I really do enjoy this deck. I've come to enjoy it more and more over the years. This is one of my favorite images and definitely reminiscent of the Magdalen. So that is the Sacred Earth Oracle, and that's a way in that you can connect with the Magdalen. Okay, the next two decks I'm going to talk about together because they're by the same artist. This is the Faceted Garden Oracle and the Illuminated Earth Oracle. Now, for the exact same reason that I said for the previous deck, these two decks are very connected shamanically to the earth element, and the imagery and the collage work and the building of the images by the artist really lends itself well to that experience of the sacred through the physical and through nature. So if you're looking to heal any ruptures in regards to experiencing the physical as divine, then this deck lends itself well for this. I'm showing you images from the Faceted Garden right now. And while there is a kind of little white book of sorts included with this deck, I read with this deck very intuitively. And this is a really, really great one. Of the two, I would say this one feels the most in alignment for me with the energy of the Magdalen. But if you feel more drawn to the Illuminated Earth, then I would say go for whichever one resonates, or get both, because I actually love having both in my collection. They're very different decks. They are not like the same. You're gonna see in the imagery, like, look at that. This is a much darker, earthier deck. They're both earth decks, but this one's a little grittier. However, I think both really do hold and represent the energy of the Magdalen and walking a path of connection with the Magdalen beautifully, especially that image right there. So, you know, when you begin your journey with the Magdalen, you can really go lots of different ways with it. I would recommend checking out Tori Amos's book. It came out around the same time The Beekeeper came out. Oh no, I can't remember the name of it. It's the first book that she wrote, came out in 2005, and she was really doing a lot of research on the Magdalen and that lineage of the Melissae. And so she gives you a lot of research jumping off points through that book. I will put the Amazon link to the book with the title down below. Cannot remember it off the top of my head right now. But anyhow, if you are feeling drawn to connect with the Magdalen, working with that type of research. So the research is going to take you in the Isis direction, and the research is going to take you in the Gnostic Gospel direction. And you can choose, pick and choose how you want to flow with that if you're someone who, like me, likes to research their goddesses. And enjoy the research, let that inform your practice, but build a personal relationship with the goddess first and foremost. Okay, guys? The final deck in this video that I'm going to recommend is the Rose Oracle by Rebecca Campbell. I didn't know why I wanted this deck. One of my wonderful clients gifted it to me. I would say the artwork is very Danielle Noel, or Noel, or however you say her last name, knockoff. But when you are looking into the myth of the Magdalene, you are going to come up against the rose and the thorns as part of her mythology and part of her symbolism. And so this deck holds that energy very well. I do not reference the guidebook with this deck at all. I read with it totally intuitively, and I look at it as an emanation of the Magdalene, but also the sacred feminine in general. So I'm going to show you some of the imagery here from this deck. So this is another option that you can use as that like daily message from the Magdalene, or you can work with it in spreads. You know, those spreads can be pinpointed with very specific card positions, or they can just be, Magdalene, I need your insight into this area of my life. And then you draw a certain amount of cards and see what comes through. But I would say this deck feels the least connected to artwork wise to how I experienced the Magdalene, but I'm sure a lot of you will enjoy the imagery here. I feel her much more in like Faceted Garden, White Light, the Serpentfire Oracle, but this is an option if this is a way in for you. I would say you might also want to look at some of Danielle Noel's decks as well then. I don't really feel the Magdalene per se in her decks, but that is an option for you as well. So I will try to remember to put a link to her site in the description box below. But this is the Rose Oracle. I would say this is the last deck on this list. It's the one that I included because it was kind of crafted in her lineage. And I do think that that rose piece and the softness of the sacred feminine is expressed in this. But I don't necessarily feel fully that the sacred sexuality and the power of the Magdalene is magnified in this deck. However, I do think it's a great place to start. So if you're completely new to goddess work or to working with the Magdalene, this could be a nice, gentle, skeleton key in that door to unlock that universe. I would say if you have been working with the Magdalene for a while, dive into Mary L and the Serpentfire if you're in the right place on your path for that. Like I said, make sure you're grounded if you're going to work with Mary L. And if you've been working with the Magdalene for a time and you really want to get personally channeled messages, I would go White Light direction. So for the viewer who requested this, I hope you find this video helpful. And if you are wanting to work with Magdalene, I hope this video helps you to connect with her through both tarot and oracle decks. As always, I am sending you so much love and many blessings. I'll see you in the next video.